Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to explain the SEO migration process and how to do proper migration without affecting your SEO performance, or how to minimize the damage when you are doing the migration. This is a concept that a lot of people struggle to understand. A lot of people think by just redirecting the URL, you will be able to recover your traffic, or not to have any decline in traffic. So I will be explaining what are the areas, what are the things that you need to um, cross check before the migration. Obviously we will be go through the detailed migration checklist, website migration checklist. You can download it from here. I have written a blog post about the SEO migration process, so I will be using that as the guidance for the today's video. So when it comes to the SEO migration, it is important to go understand what are the process involved within SEO migration, especially when you are working with a client. And first thing is you need to properly set objectives and expectation to the client. So um, even though we try to minimize or not to have any decline in traffic as much as possible, there can be scenarios that because of unavoidable situations, the website traffic can decline, or at least temporarily there can be a fluctuation because of the migration. So we have to clearly update the client. Let's say that within first couple of weeks you can expect fluctuations in the rankings and performance due to migration, because Google takes time to adjust their index, update their index of whatever the things we have changed on our website. So that's the first step. Then the next step is the SEO migration, is the data gathering. Data gathering, we will go in more detail, explain the checklist, what data we need to gather. Then we have a review, comparison and redirection metrics, launch and post evaluation. So these are the main stages of SEO migration. And now just jump into um, uh, some of the misconcept I have previously also mentioned. Some of the people think just migrating, just redirecting the URL will be enough. Now, in my experience, that is not the case. If you are changing the design, if you are changing the content of the website that was previously ranking, you need to have at least a club the same content as much as possible in the new design as well. Let's say that you are doing a website redesign, and there was let's say one blog post or one landing page is ranking well, but in the new version you are not carrying forward that blog post, or you don't have the same content available for the previous landing page. By just redirecting the old URL to new URL, um, you won't be able to hold your ranking. What happened is temporarily you will see it will be the same ranking positions, but eventually, because you don't have that content authority anymore, your ranking will drop. So other than the URL redirection, with the 301 redirection is really important. Um, but other than that, the content gap analysis is really important versus your new pages versus your old pages. That's the that's the main two concept you need to understand is website migration. Um, so there are different scenarios that the we might need the SEO migration. For example, if the domain name change, a site design and URL change, maybe URL structure, entire URL structure is changing, site design is changing. Um, Sometimes can be only the website domain name change. Then platform, it can be the platform or CMS change. and any content changes can be one or couple of pages content changes. um, yeah, and even migrating from HTTP to HTTP, sometimes we have to properly look at the technical elements involved in these changes. So I'm not going to explain all these scenarios. If you like, you can come back to the blog and read all these scenarios. So let's jump into the SEO migration checklist. So you can download it from the my blog post here. So just click here and it will open up a Google Docs, and just make a copy, and you will be able to edit the document here as well. Now here, within this document, there are a couple of main important sections. Let me take this on this side. Um, so first, the checklist, identify top pages, metadata, and redirection matrix. These are the main tabs. So checklist, when it comes to checklist, these checklists are structured in a way similar to the different staging, data gathering, review, then the review and the launch date and post evaluation checklist. So what we collect during the data gathering, we need full website crawling data. So we generally use Screaming Frog to crawl the entire website, because we need to keep a record of the whole website always. For this is really important and really beneficial when you are cross checking the historical data with the new website. The second thing is identify top performing pages in Google Search Console and also Google Analytics. Uh, Ideally, normal process is we go back to at least 6 months of past data, especially in Google Search Console, and we take um, those pages. We go and find what are the top performing pages in Google Search Console, and then we take those pages into this tab at the top pages. You can see existing page, clicks, impressions. So we only take the clicks and impressions from Google Search Console, and then we add it into this area of the file. Uh, then loading speed report. These are some of the report, like a benchmark report for our later comparison, benchmark keyword ranking report to cross check later to see whether is there any ranking dropping or like that. Obviously, if you have a continuous ranking tool, you don't need it this one, but we like to keep separate record in case if something not work properly. Internal linking data. So this is another area that people are ignoring. Internal linking affects the ranking performance. So make sure, let's say, for especially the critical pages. That's why it's important for understand what are the top performing pages. At least for these critical pages, look at the internal data, how they have linked to other pages, or from what pages they are getting the internal links from. So that is really important. um, Copy XML sitemap. This is not that critical, but you can copy the sitemap if you needed. The other thing is, especially when you are doing a domain change, it's important to check the old website backlinks. So one of the common issues that we face when people are migrating, especially to a new domain, the old domain had the backlink profile, had the good backlink profile, but they just do the redirection, thinking that anyway the uh, because that we have a 301 redirection, even though we have a backlink from to the old domain, it will be automatically redirecting to the new domain. But the thing is that always there's a some percentage of link use is reduced during the redirection, that can cause a drop in your authority as well. Ideally we recommend to directly try to directly update all backlinks with the new domain as well. Okay, then the review and design. These are actually looking at, these might be not applicable for all the scenarios. Actually, scenarios is given in this under here, whether it's a domain design or HTTPS or just a small update. So based on that, you will see the whether this checkpoint is applicable or not. For example, if that's a new design, you have to review the new design UX and mobile UX as well, review SEO structure, and compare with the previous top performing pages. Now, especially you need to filter out, especially you need to do the comparison, these things, especially with the top performing pages. Sometimes if a website is, let's say, 1,000 of pages or 100,000 of pages, you cannot do this. That's why we have to filter down to the uh, only for the critical pages. Um, Sitemap, navigation, click depth. These are some of the other uh, checks you need to do, and also obviously staging environment. One of the common mistake a lot of web developers do is the staging environment also crawlable by index, so crawlable by Google. So it's indexed in Google. So already make sure it's not indexed in Google. It's blocked for Google as well. And if you can run a crawler, you should be able to run a crawler and get the data about the staging website and try to fix technical issues you identified within the staging website as much as possible. Compare the top performing pages content with the new site of content. So that's, I think we have addressed that issue in number point two as well. And the most important thing is map URL or redirection metrics. Mapping the now what we do here when we go identify top pages, we have the top pages under here. Then with the new website, we map. So if we assume that this abc.com about us section is the top performing pages, and we map that page within the new website as well. And then what we do is, if there's a content gap between these two pages, let's say the new web page doesn't have the enough content that have um, that match this page, then we identify there's a content gap, and then we ask our content writers or the whatever the person who's handling the website to make sure that the content is updated uh, uh, before we launch the website. So that's the process in the URL mapping. So it can go to hundreds of pages, sometimes thousands of pages when it comes to URL mapping. Then other loading speed check, review, tracking codes. The other most important part is sometimes a lot of people miss adding the Google Analytics tracking code, any other tracking codes. So just make sure to double check this one as well. Um, then the recommendation, once we have this, uh, and also the other part we have to check is the metadata. Now, similar to the top performing page, especially for the top performing pages, we get all the pages here, and we look at the existing existing title, and we also add the new web page. For example, if I explain this one, we have, this is the old URL, this is the new URL, and this is the old URL title, and we check what is the title of this new URL. If that is not updated, then we just simply ask to update the existing metadata, or create update the new metadata as well. This is another area a lot of web developers or agencies miss. They forget to update the metadata on the new website. um, Finally, redirection matrix. Once you map the one-to-one URLs, you can easily create the redirection matrix. That means, let's say now, especially when you are changing domains or change the URL, uh, you can you can add the old page URL here, the new page URL page here, and the redirection method, of course, 301. And this, using this, there's a formula added to this Excel sheet. You just need to update these columns. There will be automatically redirection code is generated here if you need it to update in hdxs file, but ideally I would recommend to use your web developers for this one, not to do it by yourself if you are not familiar with redirects implementation. So that's it. Then so it will take a couple of days to do the whatever the things you have identified within this area to implement it. So make sure that you have keeping a buffer time in terms of the data gathering, review and design, and implementation. So before the launch date, you have to at least have 4 to 5 working days minimum, based on our experience, to implement those things, recommendations. Then we have the launch date. During the launch date as well, make sure you remove no index or no follow tags you have already added to the website. Check the rubber text file, check whether we have properly updated the metadata. Then test and submit into Google Search Console whether we can properly crawl and index the website. Um, Now fetch as Google to find the crawling issues of the page. Try to uh, inspect now. It's actually inspect URL tool in Google now. And if it's a domain name change, still we can update the domain name in the Google Search Console under the legacy tool, if I'm correct. No, it's under the settings. Um, then check the redirects. That's the most important thing, as well as the other thing we missed to add it here, to check the tracking code. Again, we have check in here as well. So what will happen is on the launch date you need to do and update these ones. Then after, if you have any issues, you need to fix immediately. After 1 week, probably you need to come back and check for full website crawl, cross-check the performance in Google Search Console as well as the Google Analytics, whether there is a drop in traffic, as well as check with your cross-check with your initial ranking benchmark reports whether there's a decline in the ranking as well. So if it's still used, seems like fluctuating, you can give it a go another week and cross-check and give more time to settle. So this is kind of the my checklist for proper SEO migration. And obviously, when you do SEO migration, you will face a lot of different scenarios, especially working with the web developing teams. Based on that, sometimes even though we follow this checklist to the T, so sometimes the not sometimes the it might be the web development team, sometimes the client are not properly implement the exact process that can cause the drop in organic traffic as well, or the migration will not successful. So communication is important, over communication is important during this period. uh, yeah, so hopefully I'm this session, I hope this session was helpful to you to understand the SEO migration. And if you like if you think this is helpful to you, just please leave a comment, um, and let me know what you think. Thank you.